great. Did the thing. We're live on Facebook, live on YouTube, and future listeners of the podcast. Hello.
And for all the moms in the Facebook group, this will be the last time we're streaming inside of the Facebook group. So if you like what you hear, if you want to stay connected with this podcast, definitely make sure you go over and subscribe, because this will be the last time we're streaming in the Facebook group. And so we have some exciting plans. We're revamping the Facebook group and what we're providing inside of the group. And so we're really excited to start that next week. So
yeah, I'm really excited about what we're going to be doing in the group, and the podcast will still be available if you like to watch it versus listening. It's still going to be on YouTube with the video and audio, and then of course, like we do every week, we'll be pushing it out to the Apple and Spotify platforms. Sweet. Okay. All right.
I hope everyone's having a beautiful day. I'm just realizing how blessed I am to have this. A lot of times we go through our day and we don't get present and appreciate. I do know that the work I've done with the tribes down in South America, appreciation is a big thing, and gratitude. So I just wanted to take a moment and express my gratitude and appreciation for this beautiful environment here in Kentucky.
Yeah, that's a good reminder, Grizz, because as I was coming into our session today, I was thinking, there's landscapers out front, and I was feeling not gratitude. I was feeling a little bit of stress and anxiety, wondering if it was going to impact the episode, but gratitude, yeah, I think that is a much higher vibrational and healing energy to have, even when things are, when you might experience attachments that are countering the environment. There's still space for gratitude.
And just get used to it. For all the YouTube watchers, I'm always going to have a Kleenex on these calls, because I work with this medicine. It's called Hop-A. And so I won't get into it here, but you administer it to your nose. It's very sacred medicine that we work with. And so sometimes you'll see me wiping my nose. So that's what it is. I'm not sick. I'm not always sick. I have a strong immune system. Yeah.
Well, thanks for the PSA on that. And I totally would have just thought it was allergies, because there's so much greenery behind you.
Yes, I do have that as well. Allergies.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for our chat today, and a little nervous, because it's a vulnerable topic. We're talking about the healing journey. We're talking about the impact that our healing has on our primary relationships. And also adjacent to that topic is this idea of the 7 levels of control, and how building awareness around that has helped me navigate my own healing and in the complex dynamics of my marriage.
This is a big one. This is going to be good. I really think it's going to help a lot of people, and I'm excited from a dad's perspective to share my story, as it relates to the topics as we go through the podcast. So,
yeah. Now, in my situation, we'll just kind of jump right into it. My husband is not microdosing, and he is not on a metaconscious healing journey. So it is a totally different dynamic when one person is really leaning into this, alternative pathway, and the other is not. Now, that's not to say he's not supportive of it. He's not, he's fine with me engaging in this pathway. However, we have very different experiences because of it. And in contrast, Grizz, you have a totally different experience with your wife being on a healing journey together. Do you want to give us just a little bit of context around your, 10,000-foot view of the dynamic of you and your wife as it relates to your shared healing experiences?
Yeah, it's really great. Again, I'm blessed that I'm in this opportunity or this experience, this relationship where I do have a partner that is supportive, and there is also struggles within that. And so I'm leaning more towards there's no right or wrong way, because you could get into something where you're doing this with your husband and your spouse, and you're at odds because your husband likes a certain tribe, and you like a different tribe. And so there it's not like, hey, you need to be doing this work with your spouse. I do think it helps. I do think it helps.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, for me, yeah, that's pretty much, we work with the medicine, the mushrooms. We work with the medicine ayahuasca and the hape. We don't serve that. I have not been blessed to serve that medicine, but we work with the indigenous who serve that medicine. And so, yes, it's great to be going to these ceremonies with my whole family
Mm-hmm.
and doing this work together. And even the microdosing, like you said, my wife is doing the microdosing as well. But even with that, like, she's very sensitive, and I'm still trying to get her dose figured out. And she's almost to the point where she doesn't know if microdosing is for her. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's really good because she's like, it's just too much. Even, I mean, 10 milligrams, she's like, whoa. And so I'm almost, I'm thinking maybe it's just too little of a dose and we need to like go way up. And so I'm really still trying to figure that out. But I'm saying that because um, I, even with that, I think that she and all the moms in that dealing with feeling like the medicine is too much, even at a low dose, and it's not for them. I see things bubbling up where there's huge shifts, huge healings when she's microdosing. So,
And that has an impact on your relationship, I imagine.
oh yeah, yeah, and it's not it's messy. It really is. But and I'm a perfectionist, and so I'm not super anal about it, and I'm a lot more relaxed than most people that say they're a perfectionist are. But yeah, I think the microdosing can help anybody, everybody, and I think it's good to work with people like you and me that can help guide people to an ideal experience with the medicine. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go back to the relationship piece. And it's been really interesting for me being on this journey kind of on an island in my house.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, my relationship has been the catalyst for a lot of my healing. I know that, and I think with any of us, our most intimate relationships are also the ones that challenge us the most, right? They bring up our blocks, they bring up insecurities that we have, communication style. Even if both people are really good at communicating, if their styles are different, there's going to be challenges. So for me, a lot of the work that I've done is around or has been kind of born out of conflict in the marriage, as I'm looking really trying to look as clearly at myself as I can in order to build awareness around my contribution to the dynamic. And I usually find myself getting to a space of kind of surrender or letting go with these topics. And so there was, there's one day, and we'll go into these in more detail, but there was one day I was really working through something, and I was on a bike ride, and I wanted to really process and release something, but I was having so much trouble. And so I stopped at a spot that I normally stop on my bike ride, which is on this overpass. It's over one of the freeways in town, and it's beautiful on this overpass. You've got the Phoenix Mountains to the south, the McDowell Mountains directly to the east. You can see North Mountain. You can see all the mountains, in the Phoenix area all around you, and then you're on top of this overpass, and the traffic is moving beneath you. So one of the things I like to do when I'm trying to process something is I'll anchor into nature consciousness. And nature consciousness is essentially any absolute item. So that does include the physical experience, right? So the ground under your feet, the cars driving on the road. So when I would ground into this feeling, this presence of the traffic moving underneath me, I would face south, and then I would meditate and really tune into nature consciousness as the cars are moving beneath me, and I tap into that in order to create ripples that move up into my consciousness and just get things moving. And I've had a lot of really great epiphanies this way. So on this particular day, I was on top of this overpass, and it's a beautiful overpass. It's kind of got a metal, archway all around it. So it's like a tunnel, and it has all these little holes. So when the sun's shining through, it looks like it's very Frank Lloyd Wright-esque. He's a big name and architect in this area. So it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But anyway, so I'm facing up. These cars are coming toward me, and I'm anchoring, right? I'm anchoring into nature consciousness and really practicing openness and wanting to release, wanting to shift. And it wasn't happening. I was feeling frustrated. I was like, okay, so I'm ready to let go. How do I do it? And something occurred to me, something shifted in me, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna physically change my perspective. So I turned around, I walked to the other side of the overpass, and now the traffic was coming out from underneath me, and the energetic difference was poignant. The difference was between me watching the cars come in and closing my eyes and feeling and kind of bracing for that experience as they're moving under me, wanting to let go. I realized I was trying to control the experience of letting go. And so when I turned around and I moved to the other side, and the traffic, then the energy movement beneath me in nature consciousness, the energy movement was now coming from within me. It was pulling. I was no longer bracing for impact. I was open, and I was experiencing the energy as it was flowing through me, from me. So it was a pulling toward sensation versus kind of a bracing or anticipation or preparation. So in that moment, I was able to really get a visceral sense of what surrender is going to feel like in this particular scenario I was trying to work through. And out of that was born this idea of the 7 levels of control, which we'll go into more detail. But I wanted to share that story because there is a visceral aspect to letting go and surrender. There is a felt sense experience of surrendering. And when we can tap into that, it can help us, on our own healing journey, and especially during challenges in our relationships.
Yeah, I love the examples, and I can't wait to share when it comes up. I think it's big for me and the listeners to know that it's working and to hear that it's working, and not that it's just some something somebody's selling, right? It's like to actually get in and know that this stuff is working, and to hear how it's working. I always like that kind of testimonial and feedback, and I tend to follow that. And so if that resonates with you, I would consider just keep following those breadcrumbs until you get to a point where you're ready to experience these shifts. Why? Because it feels better. Like, why do this? I ask myself all the time, and when I come back to it, it's because it just feels better. I feel better. My heart feels better. Everything around me feels better. It spreads into my relationships. Everything just feels better. Do you want to feel better? Is the most simple question I think I can ask anyone that's interested in doing this work.
That makes me think of a quote. I'm going to butcher this, but the gist of it is that the best thing that I can do for you is work on myself. And the best thing that you can do for me is work on yourself. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it sounded right to me.
Right. Yeah. So when we pursue our own healing, when we actively pursue our own healing, we're showing up differently, and it's going to have an impact on our closest relationships. So yeah, I know in my own marriage, it has, as one person is changing quite a bit, it can be challenging when you're creating potentially new patterns of engagement, a different attachment style, or communication is changing. And even if it's getting healthier, it can feel different, and that can be stressful on the relationship. And in some cases, one person kind of ends up moving on from the other, right? And it's interesting. There's a foundational principle in energy consciousness that every person that we meet is both our teacher and our student. And I think when we're looking at intimate relationships, that's so true, right? We attract people to us that fit us with where we are at that point in time. And hopefully you change and you grow together. But what happens if you change and you grow and the pieces no longer fit? Then you have to either create a clarity around how the pieces will fit, or, split off and create a new puzzle.
And it's okay, right? The society tells us how things are supposed to be, and you're not supposed to do this or do that.
Mm-hmm.
You say it all the time, like, you're perfect how you are right now, and you're actually, I feel like you're doing more service for yourself by following your heart. And if it's meant to where you're splitting up with someone, I promise it's the best thing for you. It's going to open you up. And I'm not encouraging people to do that, but I just want to,
Mm-hmm.
be behind those people, and let you know it's okay. Because in my experience, that's holding a lot of people back that I work with, is like,
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to be seen now? How are my
Mm-hmm.
parents, how's society going to see me as this person? And so there's so much beauty beyond a lot of that fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a hard choice. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, there's just the path. And hopefully before anyone would get to that point, they would seek support, whether counseling or help, especially in our demographic of moms. There's whole families at stake. So it's not an easy choice, whatever you decide to do. And one thing I wanted to really kind of hone in on is this point of conflict. When you're maybe moving through a challenging cycle or dynamic, and how that can kind of help you grow, how you can look at it as an opportunity for your own personal journey. I know I've done a lot of work around that, and looking at various energetic dynamics has helped me figure out who I truly am, to see and have confidence in who I truly am, independent of however I might feel at the time in my relationship. And that was a huge shift for me in my own healing journey. And, one of the things that I've been kind of working on is this, as you know, Grizz, the felt sense framework of reality with the different levels of consciousness. And when you think about it, we're each kind of our own universe, right? Our felt sense bubble within reality is kind of like its own universe with conscious masses and gravitational pull and inertia. And there's all sorts of stuff happening within us, subconsciously, unconsciously, consciously. Like it's all, a lot of it is automatic. And so when we take our universe and we enmesh it with somebody else, then it creates a whole new dynamic, a whole new set of orbits and gravitational pull and inertia. And some of those objects of consciousness that we feel the pull around might be things like our attachment style, things that we learn growing up developmentally. Also, any traumas that we might experience either individually or together, the whole spectrum of trauma, whether it's, a lowercase t trauma or a big case T trauma, however you define that, the entire spectrum. If there's trauma and your body has responded to it in such a way, that becomes a thing within which your relationship energy will navigate around. And then also whatever cycles you might get into around conflict, communication, resolution, all of that creates these pulls in the relationship and blocks often to unhindered flow. So building awareness around what the blocks are can help you feel like you're kind of on the same team with your partner. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Kind of like having it, looking at these things objectively, like, oh, here's a thing that, that I'm bringing to the relationship. Here's a thing that you're bringing. Here's a thing that we've experienced together that has, gravitational consciousness to it. And we often orbit, we often move within its orbit. Being able to look at it in that almost witness consciousness way can create a sense of team, even if you guys are, even if the two parties, for example, my husband and I, we're navigating our journeys completely differently. That felt like a lot. Yeah.
Well, I want to share some, like, what's working for me in my relationship. Some of the key shifts, some of the key tools working with you in this program, that I can share some examples. And so I recommend for anyone that is going through something in a relationship that it has to do with meditation, but meditation can be just literally you're standing and you're just thinking, you're in thought, but without judgment. Okay. What do you want? What feels good? So if it's in the relationship and it's like your husband, your wife, whatever, they're not really who you want. And for whatever reason. So if you can imagine, what do you want it without judgment? Maybe it's a different husband, maybe it's two husbands, maybe it's a husband with more money, whatever it is. In my experience, when I just kind of tap into really just what I'm feeling, like what do I really want without attachments or feeling like I'm letting somebody down. And when you sit in that, I feel like it taps you into the wholeness. And I don't know this 100%, right? This is my experience, but I feel like it taps me into who I really am without hiding or putting walls up. And then from that point, from that place of wholeness, of really just feeling, embracing who you are, things start to shift in the current relationship. So whatever I was wanting, I was imagining that and just being happy with that. I guess maybe just tapping into that feeling from that place, my reality started to shift to where my wife and my relationship was getting better, and I wasn't even thinking about that other thought, imagination, what I wanted, a week prior. And so that current relationship was just magically improving through just that simple shift and process.
Through good. So to clarify, you're talking about getting clarity around what you want. Is that
Yeah.
what I am
Hmm.
hearing? And
Hmm.
that clarity, that vision as to what you want is allowing for more of just positive interactions in your marriage. Is that what you're?
Yeah. And knowing you're going to get it, at least in my mind and heart, whatever I've dreamt, whatever I've dreamed of, thought of, I've received. And so, yes, if get clarity on what it is that you want in a relationship, and feel that, think about that, really sit in that, and through that, it's almost like that kind of pixelates that energy, and it gets absorbed into your current environment. And you know your husband doesn't turn into that big bodybuilder macho man that has $3 million, if that's what you're wanting. Um, but you slowly see him, maybe he starts going to the gym, and then something happens magically where he gets a raise. And so that's one other key thing that I wanted to share, as far as not being in a rush. That was the other big realization I had to have. And so for me, my trigger, my wife, and I won't get into why, but when she gets on her phone, I have these certain emotions and triggers.
Mhm.
And through doing this work, I wanted her to not, do this, get on this her phone at a certain time, but that was not happening.
Mhm.
However, she started to scratch my back and be more affectionate and more
Mhm.
physical with touch. And in my head, when I was working through a lot of this work, getting to the point I am now, I was battling with, it's not perfect. She's still doing that. And I want to like push that or highlight that, instead of appreciating the moment and just being happy. I was getting this message from God, just be happy. And then, it's what I was talking about, slowly this vision, this energy of your ideal, like what you really want, what you truly are, starts to get absorbed into your current relationship. She's scratching my back, like I don't have everything checked off, but
Mhm.
it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah. So by looking at and releasing any attachments to a particular outcome or particular, resolution around something, by looking at those and releasing them, you're able to then open to the connection that's available now.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
that's a powerful realization for sure. And it's, yeah, that's an interesting point, and something that I've worked through a lot myself, as far as like things that maybe I struggle with, with some of his behaviors and things that he does. And I have him too. He struggles with stuff I do all the time as well. However, I'm talking about me here and my journey. So when I'm looking at that, it's something I can't control and something I can't change, then the only option to go for me is up, is to raise my consciousness to a point where I can look at and I can release the attachments and the judgments by looking at, what beliefs are under those, what interpretations or worldviews or limiting beliefs do I have, or what do I think that it's saying about me? How can I create a holistic picture of all of that, debris, all of those threads, and then be able to set them aside and say, I want to be open. I want to connect. I want to be curious, and I want to create. I want to build toward something instead of push away or brace from. And that has made a big difference in my own ability to look at my own layers. And control is such an interesting thing. Even if we're not controlling people, quote unquote, everybody struggles with the need to control, and it shows up differently.
Yeah, I want to control. Yeah, don't get on the phone. Like, if you love me, you won't do this. And that's it's just because your husband does this thing doesn't have to be in every situation is different, okay? But for the most part, just because he does this minor thing that triggers you doesn't mean you have things are over and it's never going to work. And I just want to say it's hard not to mention all this work without the medicine. I just think that it's a superpower, really, that it just gives you something that I just don't think you can get without it. And combining that with this work, it's really great because you have so much, a wealth of knowledge, but we're breaking it down and we're creating these tools where it's just a shift. Like it's not a long, huge 30-page journal and you have to do this for 14 days or 30 days. Like, do you want to feel happy? Do you want to be happy? Do this. Do this small shift in your thought. And it's hard. And a lot of times it's because we haven't experienced it. So it's like, this sounds kind of interesting, but I don't know if it's going to work. And I'm distracted and all this, but it's like, do you want to start focusing on you? Do you want to feel better? For me, this is the way. And it can take 5 minutes with one of your guided meditations.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's hard not to plug or to talk about the medicine, but I think it's instrumental.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say that microdosing has 100% given me space to be able to have the self-awareness to create all of these things and to be mindful of how I'm showing up and honor the different experiences and not get stuck in lower level energies. And one thing when we're talking about control, sometimes when we think about giving up control, that doesn't go deep enough in the layers. When we think like, oh, I have to give up control, I have to surrender, it's almost like there is some connection there to an energy imbalance in the relationship. Like there's some sacrifice involved, some giving away, and that perceived imbalance is energetically not true. So it's good to look at where that's coming from within you, because all of us have the same access to universal conscious energy. So any perceived or experienced imbalances in a relationship is occurring through the act of perceiving that relationship, the dynamics in that relationship. And the good news about that is that means it can be changed, and that means you can experience it differently and show up differently, thus impacting the way the relationship unfolds. So it's not, I encourage you, if you're doing this work, to not think about giving up control. What you want to be getting to a space is giving up the need to control, looking at why you need to control and addressing that. It's not like the control is just the symptom, right? There's deeper belief systems at play, interpretations, self-critical beliefs that often fuel our need to control. And I think, well, it's definitely complicated. And one of the guiding questions that I have, going into a lot of this is, why is it so hard to give up control? Why is, surrendering is such a hot topic. So why is it so hard to give up control?
Because I have the answer.
Yes.
I think I do. It's because we don't feel whole. When I don't feel whole, I'm doing this to get validation that she loves me or he loves me or my parent, but even the example where I said, like, go to what feels good without judgment, because I've done it with these extra feelings on top of it. So for me, my example was like, okay, if I don't feel like my wife truly loves me 100%, I'm just going to go to the rainforest and I'm just going to, I'm going to go down there and follow my passion and study. But there was like resentment behind it. And I was like, maybe I'll find a girl down there. Maybe I won't. Like, I'm not necessarily going for that. But there was like this extra energy behind it, and it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Versus just, for me recently, just in my head saying, I'm going to just follow my heart. If it leads me to studying with someone in the rainforest, that's where I have to go for me. My heart, I want to be an expert with the guitar. I want to really learn and be a student of the prayers. And that's what I'm going to, versus like, well, this is going to happen if you don't do this or that, like, it's just all that. And it was because I didn't feel whole. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really embrace the calling and me, who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said I had to answer. I think it is. That's for me. But, there's, I'm sure, other ways to skin a cat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that deficit-based, deficit-based trajectory does lead to needing to control, because your system, your felt sense system, is constantly trying to move toward this wholeness, and we think that we have to be the ones to ensure that happens, versus the universe's innate wholeness that already exists, that always is just going to create wholeness, because that is what it does, whether or not we're involved. So that's interesting thinking, that we even have any level of control. And I think you're right. I think it is largely deficit based. It's rooted in maybe some kind of fear, or maybe some kind of aversion, right? But when you switch to that pulling toward, then the energy is completely different.
That deficit based thing you said was interesting, because in this whole experience just recently, we were invited to lead a private ceremony for a lady at her farm, and it wasn't a lot of money. It was a lot less, but it was a friend, but I did it anyway because my heart is calling me to this space. So as we lean in, things are going to come to us and present us an opportunity to lean more into our heart. It might not make financial sense, right? There might be some, but if you just follow that, things are just going to be beyond your dreams. And so in that experience, I was playing the guitar, songs were coming to me. I ended up playing a really good song, and my wife was like, made a comment like she really liked my voice on that, and I could feel the shift in like attraction, and so that's just to highlight this thing of following our heart, and it'll work out. It'll work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Following the heart. Absolutely. That is a higher level of control or release of control. So let's jump into these various levels and kind of maybe talk about our experiences around them. First one, level one, with control, is the idea that I control myself because I can't control anything around me. So this is feeling hopeless, maybe, or overwhelmed, or feeling like nothing you do matters. And so this would be, if we're talking about like attachment styles, this would be that avoidant attachment style. It's self-protective. It's, the introvert. it's the withdrawing into yourself in order to install safety, to feel a sense and create a sense of safety, because it's not safe out there. It's only safe in here, inside these walls. And I know a lot about this level because I've spent a lot of time here myself, which, as you can imagine, is not a great way to resolve conflicts in an intimate relationship, when we're withdrawing under, feeling like we have to create our safety and put walls up and move through it that way. It does not lead to a resolution. So I do not recommend this route if you are looking to create more openness and expansion in your primary relationship. So do you have any experience or thoughts with level one, or should we go on to level two?
Yeah, let's go on to level two.
Okay. Yeah, he's like, no, you're the expert on level one. Level two, I control you because you are causing my distress. So this one is where our control is more outwardly focused. We're focused on controlling the other person to minimize pain, to minimize hurt, to create safety. You are sourcing your safety by attempting to control what's happening around you. As a mom example, when my kids are fighting, I very much move into a level two. I own that completely. Like, you guys need to stop fighting because my nervous system is activated when you scream, and you need to stop. That is level two right there.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that one.
Yeah. Level three. So I control the situation toward a particular outcome. So this is less focused on people, specific, managing people, and more focused on particular outcomes. As a mom and someone who kind of carries the mental load, right, of the household, all of the lists and the, when laundry needs to be done and who needs to be where by when, kind of running the cruise ship of everything. That's a lot of level three. Looking at, if we're going to, bedtime is 8 p.m., then we need to have dinner by 5. We need to, do baths by 6. And, so like, it's a lot of backwards planning. but that's a lot of level 3.
Yeah. Maybe for our listeners, and I could have missed this because I'm just so immersed in this nature, I get lost sometimes. But these levels, so what if we are in one of those levels?
Mm-hmm.
Is that good? Is that bad? Are we trying to get to a certain level? And is that where you have certain tools to help us? Or is this just more of an awareness exercise to see where you are at a certain point in an experience?
Mm-hmm. There's a couple answers to that. In the interest of keeping this conversation focused, let's finish the 7 levels, and then we'll kind of talk to that as far as like, so what if you are in a level 2? Like, what do you do then? Right.
Well, because for like level 1, and
Mm-hmm.
like you said, I'm not as versed in this as you are, but I control myself because I can't control anything around me. So is that where like maybe, like I just get in my little bubble and kind of maybe I'm grumpy and I'm like, I'm just gonna just do my thing and not worry about anybody else? Or am I off on that?
Yeah, that absolutely could be level 1. And when we are pulling in the concepts around energy consciousness, anabolic energy versus catabolic energy. So a building up energy, which is anabolic, or a breaking down energy, which is catabolic, we can experience all of these levels in both anabolic and catabolic ways. So with level 1, if you are focusing on yourself, but not in a way that is catabolic, there are ways to nurture yourself. That would be more of a level 1 space. Boundary setting, anabolic level 1, right? Maybe you're setting really good boundaries, and that kind of creates that sense of like level 1 control, but in a constructive way. Then that is a strategic and effective way to utilize level 1 control patterns. So
So
building
it's not
awareness.
bad. It's not bad if you're in a level 1.
No. And like, for example, level 3, I need level 3 control. I need to be able
Okay.
to look at, where we need to be by when, and then kind of get into the weeds of the logistics around all of that.
Cool.
Again, there's anabolic and catabolic ways to experience all the energy levels, and they can create loops. You can experience kind of inertia within these levels as well. Like let's say in a level 3, I have a plan for the kids, for homework, for bed, for all the things. And then let's say, my husband comes in and decides to start giving them ice cream at 9 p.m. or something. And I'm suddenly feeling very frustrated and I'm dropping into level 2 or level 1. But recognizing that, when I recognize, okay, I'm feeling frustrated, and that is creating this need within me to control for a certain outcome, I need to then ask myself, what outcome am I attaching myself to? And is there a connection-based pathway to get from this point to that point? And if there's not, then it might be good to try and get to those higher levels of control and say, okay, well, my options are to go in there and be mad and say, put the ice cream away, or what are you doing, or make a comment, or, none of that is going to make anything any better for anybody. So that's when I may want to look at moving up into shifting upward in the control aspect in order to create more space for connection. And then at some point in the future, maybe sitting down and having a connection-based conversation with my husband to discuss, our values. What's important to each of us, and also, looking at how that feeds into the choices like feeding the kids ice cream at 9 p.m. after they've gone to bed.
Thanks for clarifying that. I just wanted to like bridge that, expect, for the listeners, just
Hmm.
clarity on like, now I have a better grasp on this as well, is or for me, this is, to be aware, this is kind of an awareness thing to see where
Hmm.
you are. And then also, yes, there are tools that you have where, you can move to a better place in that certain level that you're in. And so
Hmm.
you don't necessarily have to move out of it, or you can. But okay, I wasn't sure if like, you're not supposed to be here, and we're trying to get to this point. So this
Hmm.
is great. Yeah, this is just kind
Hmm.
of like sharing what the levels are. You can experience any level. It's not, good or bad if you're in a certain level, but there are healthier ways to experience that level of
Hmm.
control. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yep, absolutely. And it it also depends on what your values are. So, for example, I would say in most relationships, connection is a top value. So when you're looking at building connection, building trust, building positive engagement, that can be a very valid um, stop on your inner tour through your emotional landscape as to what is going to create that and what is going to not create that, what's going to close off the loop to that. And is there a better time to maybe have whatever exchange you want to have around whatever the situation is, whether it's ice cream or anything else? Is there a better time where things won't be as reactive too, which is also key, having a little bit of space there. um, okay, so level 4, I control using conditional love um, for a particular outcome. So, um, what that means to me is, sorry, not lost my train of thought totally there. Um, what that means to me, conditional love toward a particular outcome is also a mothering role, right? It's a nurturing role. It's saying, I want what's best for you. I know that, for my kids, I know that getting at least, 9 hours of sleep is what they need for their brains. And so that's why bedtime, that's why I control, why I come with that energy of like bedtime's at, 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. or whatever time. Bedtime is this time because it comes from a love for you and your higher good. Um, yeah, a lot of parenting examples. I think that's, a lot of us experience control in that arena because that's part of the job, I think. Yeah, so level 5, I control the situation toward an outcome that works best for everyone. So this is win-win. This is uh, it's a cognitive based level. So you're thinking a lot about what is the best way to get to, um, you know, point B, and what's the best way to get there that ensures that everybody has the best possible experience. So you're really thinking, you're not connecting, you are thinking. And so you have to be careful in level 5 because it can be largely driven by attachments. It can be largely informed by our judgments and our worldviews, our limiting beliefs, and we won't even know it. We have to really dig deep sometimes. But generally speaking, level 5 is a very powerful level to resonate with because you are starting to get into more of that strategy. A lot of leaders use level 5 because it takes a lot of thinking and planning and strategizing and logistics to get to spaces where people want to follow you, right? Because you're creating this win-win dynamic. But again, it's important to be mindful of what attachments are driving your outcomes that you're moving toward. What attachments are there? What judgments? What beliefs are fueling that whole paradigm that has led you to the attachment for this particular outcome? Does that resonate?
Yeah. Yep. Um, yeah, I was just thinking about, just in my experience, attachments, just, leading the push with the church and just a lot of things. And
Mm-hmm.
just thinking about if there's any attachment to like creating, and there is, but I don't know. I want to say it's a healthy attachment, but I don't know if maybe it's not an attachment. Uh, I just, I just want to eat better. I want my family and my friends to live healthier. I have this vision of a bunch of land, a bunch of organic food, and kind of that win-win, like where, if we get the support and helping doing this, then everybody will benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so I was just thinking, is there an attachment somewhere in there? Is just all I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
What
There
about?
is. There's always attachments, and it's important. It's good to just build awareness and be aware because attachments aren't bad. They just are. They're a product of our lived experiences and the things that we believe, and it doesn't mean that they're all bad. But it is important to build awareness of them, so you have an understanding as to why you operate the way you do. Even if at the end of the day you at that point you're like, yeah, I I have this attachment and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with this attachment. Because it's in pursuit of, whatever greater value, goal, or vision you're working toward. One thing I will mention is that when we start getting into level 6 levels, where you're letting go of the need to control, you're choosing love, you're choosing flow. So the idea is that you may have a vision from kind of level 5, and you are choosing the pathway that results in open flow and connection with others. And, however that manifests is how it manifests. But that's where you're starting to release attachments and really focus on um, the desire behind the outcome, right? So whatever the desire is behind the vision, behind the goal, how you want to feel, how you want to experience during, in that result, that becomes the focus, along with connection and flow. And when you align with that, that's when synchronicity really starts to come in, because you're no longer so wrapped up in the how, in the details. You are allowing things to unfold and aligning yourself with the feeling that you want to achieve in the particular outcome you have planned. Is that too esoteric, or does that make sense?
Well, I was going to say, does that relate or connect to uh, my example of visualizing uh, what the mom wants? If it is a different husband, but like, uh, or whatever, it's a different state, or whatever it is, visualizing that, but like feeling it without, you know, thinking about how am I going to get there, anything else. It's just think about what you want, visualize it. What does it feel like? Like, where are you sitting? What are you eating? How does your body and your nervous system feel? But just like really feeling into what you really want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I
when
don't
you're
know.
asking yourself what it is that you truly want, for example, let me pull something out here of my. Let's say, oh man, I'm blanking. But okay, in your example, the woman maybe wanting a different husband or something to that extent.
A big, strong husband, big
Okay,
bodybuilder with $1 million in his bank account.
okay. So in that hypothetical example, you are maybe visualizing this person, and more importantly, you want to connect with how you're going to feel when it happens. So let's say you have feelings of, you feel safe, right? You feel protected, you feel cared for, you feel love, you feel connection, adventure, whatever the things are that you want to feel. That's what you focus on, not the not the how, not the what, right? You focus on how you want to feel, because that can happen a whole heck of a lot sooner than the universe arranging the perfect package in a tidy box and bow that fits the description of your criteria.
Sometimes I think I say things to kind of spice things up, and I don't know if uh, that's very relevant, the bodybuilder example, but maybe it's just having a husband that like listens to you. Like that's what they're visualizing. Like I just
Yeah.
want a husband that listens to me and that gives me peace.
So then you might say, I want to feel heard. I want to feel seen. I want to feel like someone cares. Yeah. That's kind of how you move up in the levels, right? Instead of saying like, I'm going to control him, not control him. I'm controlling the narrative because I want him to listen to me. I want him to put his phone down and I want him to listen to me. Instead, I'm focusing on, I want to feel seen. I want to feel heard. I want to feel like what I say matters. Then, with that clarity, you can bring that into the dynamic, into the communication around whatever the challenge is, and you're communicating in a way that doesn't bring up blocks, right?
You're
When
not
you're
giving yourself enough credit, Amanda. I think you're missing something.
what's that?
So I just think about that meditation you did of awareness. And it's
Uh-huh.
just for my experience, in that example you were saying, when I just do that practice of zooming out and looking at, sometimes it's not even looking down from a different perspective. Like yesterday, I was working with the Hape, the medicine, and we did a lot of work yesterday. And so I think that attributed to this, but I just went black. Like for the
Mm-hmm.
first time, I just went totally black, and it was just peace. And it felt to me like I was complete. And then I just keep going back to this place of like, when you feel whole, when you feel complete, just things naturally shift. And so like, yeah, when you're aware and you want to feel seen and you want to feel heard, but also on top of that, doing this practice, this meditation that you teach, where you zoom out and you look down, or you just try to just be nothingness. That practice, combined with the awareness of like, oh, I just want to be seen, it it creates magic. And I'm sharing that because I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed, like, okay, now you have this next step to do this, and you got to go this, and then you got to sit down with your husband and you got to write out these 5 steps with him and do that. Like, in my experience, it's so much more simpler than that. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I'm just, maybe this is what moms are thinking. But for me, it's just these simple little shifts and practices that you teach, and then doing a quick 30-second meditation where you're zoomed out, and then boom, magically, your husband comes up and is like, hey babe, I really like how you did this today. And you're like, oh my gosh, I feel seen. That's how this has been working for me, like in my experience. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel a little bit of a reaction to that, only because I can imagine a scenario where I did that, zoom out, I zoom back in, and but nothing changes. And then what? Then what do I do? So the job at that point is to move up the levels. And then I think as you show up differently in the relationship, then you're building these different types of interactions over time, these different patterns. And especially with microdosing, when we're also creating, through, creating new neural pathways and moving into totally new unconscious patterns that drive us. We're updating our operating system. But when we start to show up over time differently, then hopefully the relationship will change and grow as well. Because if one person is changing, then the relationship is going to change. Yeah. Finally, the level 7, which is the idea that control is an illusion. None of us have any control ever. And we all have all the control all the time because we are consciousness. We are manifested energy. And the universe is a timeless, eternal experience that just is. And control is an illusion. So that's level 7. It can be helpful to connect with that, like during witness consciousness. But then when you got to zoom back in, because as I told you yesterday, Grizz, I was like, you can't live in level 7. Otherwise it will hurt your relationships because you won't have any attachment to anything. And that's not good for relationships. So yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. Yeah, that was really good. I hope this helped some people.
I hope so too. And I do just want to reiterate again, like none of these levels are bad and we can experience these levels strategically. Like I need level 3 and 4 quite a bit as a mom. I need those, but it's being mindful that am I experiencing this in a way that's contributing toward connection, or am I experiencing this in a way that is more of a destructive or not connection based, right? Is it promoting my values, or is it contradicting my values? And I think each of us, we want to do that, to figure out what our deepest values are. And then we can start looking at these things and these patterns and asking ourselves questions to support us in creating small shifts over time to experience all of these levels in a more constructive and connection-based way.
Yeah, that's great. Well, my blackberries are coming in now. I don't know if you can see them, but
oh, those look beautiful. Nice. Well, thanks everybody. And next week we won't be in the Facebook group, but we will be still on YouTube, and on, we'll have our episode push through to the other platforms too. So if you have any questions, please reach out to either one of us. We love to help. And otherwise, have a good week.